My name is Daniel. I'm 34 years old. I live, or I used to live, in a suburb outside of Columbus, Ohio. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand that I am not someone who scares easily. I'm not someone who looks for trouble. I'm just a person who installed a camera on his front door. The notification came at 2:17 a.m. I know the exact time because I screenshot it. I don't know why I did that. Some part of me, even then, understood that I might want proof later. The alert read, "Motion detected, front door." But that's normal. I get those alerts sometimes. A raccoon crosses the driveway. A car passes on the street. The wind moves a branch and the camera catches the shadow. I've had the Ring installed for about 4 months at that point, and most nights I don't even check the feed. I just swipe the notification away and go back to sleep. That night I checked out, I'm not sure why. Maybe it was the time. 2:17 is a strange hour. Not late enough to be early morning. Not early enough to be anything reasonable. Or maybe it was something else, some quiet signal underneath conscious thought that told me to look. I opened the app. The live view loaded slowly, the image assembling itself in grainy rectangles from top to bottom. And when it finished loading, I saw him, that he was standing at the end of my front walkway. Not on the porch, not near the door, just at the edge of the property, where the concrete path meets the sidewalk. Standing very still, facing the house. I watched the feed for maybe 30 seconds before he was gone. He didn't walk away. He didn't turn. The camera he just wasn't there anymore. I told myself it was probably nothing. I was wrong. Some context, because I think it matters. I moved to that house in March. It's a rental in a development called Ashford Commons, a mid-sized suburb outside Columbus. The kind of neighborhood where the houses look identical except for the color of the shutters. 2-car garages. The occasional basketball hoop left out in the cul-de-sac. I moved there with my girlfriend, Claire. She travels for work, pharmaceutical sales, so she's gone roughly 2 weeks out of every month. When she's home, the house feels like what it's supposed to be. When she's gone, it feels like a large, quiet box I'm living inside of. I work from home. Freelance project management. I keep strange hours, which means I was awake at 2:17 a.m. not because something woke me up, but because I was still at my desk catching up on a project. The laptop was open. The TV was on for noise in the other room. The Ring camera was Claire's idea. She'd read about package thefts in a nearby neighborhood and wanted something that let us both feel like we had eyes on the place. I installed it myself in early April. It covers the front door and about 40 feet of the walkway. The neighborhood is quiet. I'd never had a reason to feel unsafe there. The neighbors on the left have 3 kids and a loud golden retriever. The couple on the right wave when they see me getting the mail. It's the kind of neighborhood where you can hear a car engine 2 blocks away on a still night. The kind where you notice when something doesn't belong. *subscribe if you're new. And if this one gets to you, like the video, it helps more people find it. Drop a comment below. I read every single one. Share it with someone who won't be sleeping alone tonight, because the next one is already in my drafts. Let me describe what I actually saw on the camera that first night. The footage is in black and white. Infrared night vision makes everything look bleached and flat. The walkway runs from the porch down to the sidewalk, maybe 25 feet. On the left side, there's a small garden the previous tenants planted. On the right, the driveway. The figure was standing at the far end of the walkway, right at the lip of the sidewalk. Male, based on build and posture. Average height. Dark clothing. I couldn't make out a face because the night vision compresses features at that distance, and he was wearing a hoodie, not raised, just resting on the back of his neck. What unsettled me was that he wasn't moving. If someone is walking their dog, they keep moving. If someone is checking their phone, there's a cast of light, a head angle. If someone stopped to tie a shoe, they crouch, then stand, then keep walking. He was just standing there, both arms at his sides, weight distributed evenly, like a soldier at ease. Facing the house. I watched for maybe 40 seconds. Long enough to know he wasn't about to ring the doorbell. Long enough to know he wasn't drunk and confused. Long enough to know that whatever he was doing, he'd done it before. There was something practiced about his stillness. And then the camera simply caught an empty walkway. I didn't see him leave. One moment he was there, and the next the frame was still, and the only thing moving was a moth near the porch light. I rewound the clip 3 times. I told myself, neighbor coming home late, someone cutting through from the bar 2 streets over, a person waiting for an Uber at the wrong address. All of those explanations required him to have seen the camera mounted above the door with a faint blue indicator light, and not to care. That part one couldn't make fit. I closed the app. I went to bed. I didn't sleep well. I didn't tell Claire. She was in Phoenix, and I didn't want to worry her. I told myself it was nothing because I wanted it to be nothing. That's the thing about the early stages of something like this. The rationalizations aren't stupid. They're completely reasonable. It's only in retrospect that they start to feel like excuses. The second night, he came back 2:19 a.m. I was asleep this time. The notification pulled me out of something. I don't remember what I was dreaming, and for a moment I just stared at the ceiling. The phone was on the nightstand. The screen was lit, motion detected, front door. I grabbed the phone. My hands were moving faster than they needed to. The feed loaded, same figure, same position, except this time he was closer, maybe 6 or 8 feet further up the path than the night before. Still facing the house, still not moving. I switched to live view. He was still there. And then he did something he hadn't done the night before. He looked up, directly at the camera. I know that sounds like I'm editorializing. I know the rational response is that he looked toward the house, and I interpreted it as looking at the camera because fear does that to perception. But the camera is mounted at a very specific height, slightly left of center above the door. The angle of his chin, the angle of his face. He wasn't looking at the door. He wasn't looking at the porch light. He was looking at the camera. He held that position for a long time. I counted 44 seconds. Then the feed glitched. It's a digital compression artifact. They happen sometimes when the Wi-Fi is congested. The image broke into blocks, turned briefly to a smear of gray and black, and when it resolved, he was gone. I went through the clip frame by frame. The glitch lasted 3 seconds. In the last clear frame before it, he was there. In the first clear frame after, he wasn't. That's all I can tell you. I got up. I turned on every light on the ground floor. I stood in the kitchen for 20 minutes with a cup of water I didn't drink, listening. The neighborhood was silent. Completely silent. Not the silence of nothing happening. The silence of everything having already happened. 3 days later, I received an email from Ring. Subject line: a new device has attempted to access your account. Someone had tried to log in from an unrecognized device. The attempt was blocked. Didn't pass 2-factor authentication. Ring recommended I update my password. There's a mundane explanation. Credential stuffing attacks are common. Bots buy leaked username password combinations and try them on every popular platform. The timing might have been coincidental, but my Ring account email was not my primary address. I'd created a secondary account specifically for smart home devices. The email was not on my social media, not in any directory. The only places it had ever been entered were my Ring account and my Wi-Fi router setup screen. I'm not going to claim I know what that means. I'm just telling you what I know. I changed the password, changed the Wi-Fi password, reconnected everything. But that night, for the first time, I checked the camera feed before I went to bed. Checked it again at midnight. Again at 2 a.m., preemptively. The walkway was empty all 3 times. He didn't come that night, which was somehow worse, because it meant he could choose when to come. And he was choosing to make me wait. 2 weeks passed. Claire came home, and having another person in the house reset something in my nervous system. I slept through the night. I stopped checking the feed. Then Claire left for Dallas, and on the 3rd night alone, I found the footprints that IT had rained the previous afternoon. Just enough to leave the soil soft along the garden bed on the side of the house. I was taking out the trash. Early evening, still light, and I noticed the impressions in the mud, boot treads, larger than my own shoe size, running along the side of the house from the backyard toward the front. I stood there and looked at them for a long time. He had been at the front of the house. Now evidence placed him on the side. I checked every window lock. I checked the door to the garage and found it was not deadbolt. Latched, but not deadbolt. I deadbolted. Then I called the non-emergency police line and reported what I'd seen. The officer was polite. He took a report, said a patrol car would increase passes through the neighborhood. He also could not tell me who it might be or what they wanted. He told me to call 911 if the situation escalated. I bought 2 additional cameras from Amazon that night. One for the side of the house, one for the backyard. 2-day shipping. The next notification came before they arrived. 1:54 a.m. Earlier than before. Motion detected. Front door. He was back. Closer. Halfway up the walkway, maybe 12 feet from the porch steps. This time he was turned slightly to the side, looking down the driveway toward the garage. My thumb hovered over the 2-way audio button. I almost pressed it. A car turned onto the street 2 blocks away. As soon as the headlights swept the edge of the driveway, the figure moved. Not running. He simply walked, unhurried and deliberate, back down the walkway and turned left and was gone. He wasn't startled. He knew the car was coming before the light arrived. He moved on his own terms, at his own pace. He was paying attention. 2 days later, Mr. Henderson from next door called. He'd gotten my number from the neighborhood app. He said that for the past few weeks there had been a dark-colored sedan, older model, maybe a Toyota Camry, parked on the street a couple houses down. Not in front of anyone's house. In the gap between streetlights. In the dark. He'd noticed, because he's a light sleeper and takes his blood pressure medication at 2 in the morning. He sometimes looks out the window while he's doing it. The car was never there in the morning. I asked if he'd seen anyone in it. He paused, then said, once, he thought so. Just a shape. Someone sitting very still. I told him about the police report. He said he'd file his own. He told me to knock on their door any time. I stood in my kitchen after I hung up and felt, for the first time, something close to grateful, that at least one other set of eyes had noticed. That I wasn't inventing this. Then I thought about the fact that someone had been watching my house from a car in the dark for weeks, and I had no idea what he was waiting for. It happened on a Tuesday night. Claire was in Seattle. I'd been sleeping lightly for weeks. Not real rest, a thin, surface-level sleep, like lying just beneath shallow water. Aware of the house, aware of sound. The phone went off at 2:03 a.m. Motion detected. Side yard. The new camera. The one along the garden bed. I was sitting up before I'd consciously decided to. The side yard feed showed the narrow strip between my house and the property line. The gate that leads from the backyard to the front driveway. The gate was open. I had latched it. I had checked it every day for a week. The gate was open. I switched to the backyard camera. The yard was empty, but the exterior light on the back of the garage, motion activated, was on. I called 911. I stayed on the phone with the dispatcher, speaking quietly. She told me not to go outside. Units were en route. I stood in the middle of the living room in the dark. Every instinct telling me to turn on the lights. Every other instinct telling me not to. Because if someone was outside, the lights would tell them exactly where I was. Then the front camera triggered. He was on the porch, not at the end of the walkway. On the porch, standing at the door, face close enough to the camera that for the first time I could actually see it, or rather the shape of it. The features flattened by night vision into a pale, unreadable mask. He was looking directly into the lens, and then he raised his hand and tried the door handle. One slow rotation. Testing it. The door was locked. It didn't give. He held the handle down for a moment, and I could see his head tilt very slightly. The way a person's head tilts when they're considering something. I said into the phone, "He's at my front door." The dispatcher said officers were 90 seconds out. Then I heard the door to the garage rattle. Not the handle. The door itself, in its frame, as if something had struck it from the other side. Once. Then silence. I moved to the far wall of the living room, away from windows, facing the door. Phone in one hand. Every light off. The only light was the faint blue glow of the Ring camera's indicator, visible through the glass panel beside the front door. I watched the door. I listened. Then I heard a car engine start. Somewhere close. The low thrum of it. Then tires on wet asphalt moving away quickly. Red and blue light began bouncing off the walls. I opened the front door when the officers knocked. 2 of them. They walked the perimeter with flashlights. Checked the gate, the garage, the backyard. Watched the camera footage standing on my porch, the younger one making notes, the older one not saying much. The street was empty. The dark sedan was gone. They found no one. Here's what the police told me in the weeks that followed. The handle test is a known burglary technique. You move through a neighborhood methodically over multiple nights, establishing which houses are occupied, which have dogs, which have security systems, which have people who wake up at strange hours. You watch the lights. You time the routines. You find the soft spots. The detective thought it was pre-burglary reconnaissance. That once the additional cameras went up, he decided the house wasn't worth the risk. That the account login attempt was an effort to access the camera feed and understand what it covered. She was professional. She told me none of this was my fault. She also told me they had no suspect. The car description matched 17 vehicles in a 3-county radius. No prints were recovered. The footage established a figure and a sequence of events, but was not sufficient to identify anyone. The case remained open. As far as I know, it still is that we moved out 4 months later. The lease was up. Claire's territory shifted. There were practical reasons, but I won't pretend those were the only reasons that I still have the Ring app on my phone. I keep meaning to delete it. Claire deleted hers months ago. She says keeping it is like picking at something that won't heal. She's probably right, but there's something about the act of checking that I can't let go of. The app still opens to the last connected device, the camera at Ashford Commons. The one I handed back to the landlord, still mounted above the door, connected to a network I no longer have the password for. When I open the app, it just says, device offline, but the motion history still loads sometimes. Old clips, the raccoon, a delivery driver, a neighbor's kid on a bicycle, and once, about 2 weeks after we moved, the history showed a motion alert I hadn't noticed before. Timestamp, 2:17 a.m. I clicked on the clip. The front walkway. Empty. Just the garden and the driveway and the faint blue glow of the camera's own indicator light reflected in the glass panel beside the door. In a one there, I've told myself it was a ghost detection. The camera triggering on a shadow or a leaf. That happens. It's a known issue. But I've also thought about the fact that I left that house in October. That the camera is still mounted. That it's still connected to a network. That someone at the property management company has that Wi-Fi password or someone else does that. I still get motion alerts sometimes. Even though we moved 8 months ago, I still open them every time. If this kept you up, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share. Leave a comment below telling me if you would have checked that notification. I read every single one. The next story drops soon. You won't want to miss it. So like, subscribe, and goodbye for now.